Hi there again. So we just finished our second video. We started where we just talked about our supplies. Then I talked about creating a tinted value scale where you go from the out of the tube color and work your way down through the lights. You can ignore this if you don't want to push that far into making extra colors. That was just kind of an extra added bonus if you're interested in playing with it before we get into it in the next unit. Okay, so what you're supposed to do now is choose 3 of your 6 compositional sketches. We did 6 so that we had some options. And then like our other trace and transfer methods, we're gonna coat the back with our graphite, lay it down, and I want you to just do the outside shape. Now that you know these are painted, if you feel like your shape is too complicated, this would be the chance for you to simplify and maybe put a bigger like rectangle around it or something straight edged and so forth. And you can try it. So like we did in our exercises with our color swatches that turned out like so, I'll make a still picture of that for you too. You're gonna use your flat brush to start, and then you can play with your other brushes too. So my other 2 designs are blue and yellow, and I'm gonna do the full primary scheme and do a pink for the next one. But if you want all of yours to be yellow or all of them to be blue, or if you made up a pretty green, you could do that. But I am gonna do mine in all the primaries, and I'm gonna show you how we're gonna paint this. So I have it all traced out again. And the idea here is that I want it to be one flat color, but if you want to kind of work with your value scale, you can. I think what I'm going to do is I like the really pale ones, so I'm going to add more white to that bucket and mostly use a pale paint, but I'm going to try and use up the other paint. And what I did when I did those other ones, the yellow and the blue, is I used almost all this paint. I'll show you at the end what you can do to save it though if you don't use it all. Okay, yeah, I like that kind of bubblegum color. It'll be good. I might come in and use a little bit of these in a second. Okay, so with a wet brush that's also clean, you're gonna load your brush. Like so it's pretty chunky. And I would start with a straight line and see if you can pull it on your own. The viscosity of the paint is how it drags across the surface. And if it's too sticky, you can add a little water, but I'll show you what I mean. So I'm gonna drag a straight line, like so, across. So that's one way you can do it. Another way you can cut straight lines is with your masking tape. And only seal it on the edge that's going to be painted, but push it down pretty good. And then loaded your brush, you're going to pull away from the tape. I'm gonna have to go across it a little bit to get it up to it, but most importantly, don't paint into it. I'm gonna freehand these. What's fun is we're gonna work with our paint markers over these, so they really don't have to be perfect. You can see I'm gonna peel the tape at an angle. Oops, I tore my paper a little. Sometimes it's good to put your tape on your jeans before you put it down so it doesn't tear your paper. But you can see how clean that line is. I'm gonna add a little water, so I'm gonna dip my brush. Oops, there's some blue in there. Oh well. In there, and it kind of makes it, the viscosity a little juicier. So I'm gonna paint my whole one with my flat brush. But you could try and use some of these if like there were areas that you were feeling needed to use a smaller brush. You'd be surprised though that you probably can paint this little section even with the bigger flat. And again, this is just kind of like a beginning into painting. Sorry, I'm thinking as I get those little spots. To help us learn how far the paint will go, how the brushes work. I'm gonna run out of this baby pink, and so I'm gonna do something crazy. I'm using a kind of cross-hatching mark. It's kind of drying pretty quickly. So I'm gonna get my brush wet a little bit again, and I'm gonna grab this darker one, mix it up into the lighter, and then trade out and make a kind of value scale. Shift into the other part of the painting. I'm going to leave it real like choppy and brush strokey, but you can just paint them flat. You could choose to paint this shape in a couple different value shifts from the beginning. I'm going to show you on our tracings what I mean by that in just a second. If it's too sticky, you can dip your brush in the water just a little bit. I think I'm going to leave that lighter. Just for a little contrast. I might add a little dark right there. But it could be totally flat, one value, or leave it like that. You'll see on here, oh, my note said whole shape and a 20% light value. I kind of shifted it up. But on this one, I had written to try to do a 10% light value, a 20%, a 10, a 30, a 20. So I could kind of shake it up a little bit. And then you can see in the final one that it has those light shifts, and this got kind of painterly here. And if these aren't like super perfect, like I have a little brush stroke fly away, it's okay. We can fix it with the marker by kind of adding in little design elements to cover things up. This one, I have like a 10 here and a 20 here. I don't know if you can see that shift. Yeah, so there's like a subtle value shift working within it. Okay, so I'm gonna let this dry, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about how to use these Poscas. But before I go, if, let's say you're done with your palette, which I am, oops, because I already did my other paintings. Hopefully yours, if you use all three colors, you'll use it all when you paint. But what you can do is you can grab all of those and save those for a later painting. And again, this paint is not very expensive. So, you know, if you have it left over, grab one of your pages in your mixed media book and make a little painting. But the more you can kind of keep this paint in a pile, like a tight little pile, the longer it'll last. And like I said, my palette paper was a little too soggy. So mine's really wet. I probably could have done without mixing mine together and it would have stayed wet, but it'll be fun because you'll get to see how it works later. when you come back to it after you've been away from it for a day or so. But this should last for a long time. Yeah, those are thick enough. Okay, so mine's super, super soggy, so I don't really need to spray it, but I might squirt these since the water's running this way. So I just, a couple little squirts, and then I put my lid on and make sure that it's really sealed tight. Oh, but this, if you still have a lot of paint in your brush, do that thing again where you find the color and scrape it out into the bucket or into the pot so that it'll match. Okay, so then I'm gonna turn the camera off and we are gonna talk about how to take care of your brushes and your sink. And I will see you in a second. Okay.